Have you ever looked back at old photos of yourself from 5, 10 years ago and thought, who is that? Not in a bad way, just unfamiliar. You don't quite recognize that version of yourself anymore. But you don't fully recognize yourself now either. And that moment, that quiet, slightly disorientating feeling, that doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're between versions of yourself. You stop recognizing yourself. There's a moment in life that doesn't get talked about very much. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with a breakdown. It doesn't arrive with a clear explanation. It's the moment you realize you don't quite recognize yourself anymore. You're still functioning. You're still living your life. But something feels different. You might notice it in small ways at first. The conversations you used to enjoy don't land the same. The things you used to care deeply about feel oddly flat. You find yourself listening more than speaking, observing rather than jumping in. And sometimes it hits you in a very ordinary moment, catching your reflection in the mirror, or scrolling through old photos, or hearing yourself talk and thinking, when did I change? That can be unsettling, because the version of you that existed before was familiar. It had a role, it had patterns, it knew how to move through the world. So when that familiarity starts to loosen, the mind often tries to make sense of it by asking the wrong questions. What's wrong with me? Why don't I feel like myself anymore? Why does everything feel slightly off? But what's actually happening here isn't something breaking. It's something ending, and endings don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they arrive quietly, through disinterest, through detachment, through a sense that you're standing slightly to the side of your own life. You're not rejecting your old self. You're not erasing who you were. You're simply no longer living from that place. And that's important, because every version of you was real. Every version served a purpose. Every version belonged to a specific chapter. But we're not meant to stay the same forever. There are phases in life where the old identity starts to dissolve before the new one has fully formed. And that space in the middle, that's the part most people struggle with, because there's no label for it, no clear direction, no neat explanation. You're not who you were, but you don't yet know who you're becoming. So it can feel like limbo, quiet flat, uncertain. And if no one ever tells you this is a real phase, it's easy to assume you're doing something wrong. But you're not. This in-between state is where reassessment happens, where values shift, where old motivations fall away. The things that once drove you might no longer make sense. And that can feel frightening if your sense of identity was tied to them. But it can also be deeply honest, because when the noise drops away, you begin to notice what doesn't fit anymore. Not because it was bad, but because you've changed. This is often the point where people say, I feel like a stranger in my own life. And that sentence carries a lot of weight. It doesn't mean you dislike your life. It doesn't mean you want to run away. It means you're no longer fully aligned with the version of yourself that built it. And alignment matters. This phase isn't asking you to panic. It isn't asking you to rush ahead or force a new identity into place. It's asking you to pause, to notice, to allow yourself to admit, quietly and without judgment, something is shifting. Because once you stop fighting that truth, the confusion begins to soften. And when you understand that this in-between space is part of growth, not a personal failing, you can start to meet it with curiosity instead of fear. You don't need answers yet. You don't need a plan. Right now, recognizing where you are is enough. And that's where we're going next. The in-between is a real phase. One of the hardest things about this in-between space is that most people were never told it exists. We're taught that life is meant to move in clear stages. You grow, you build, you settle, you achieve. So when you hit a phase where nothing feels clear, the instinct is to assume something has gone wrong. But this isn't a mistake phase, it's a transition phase. And transitions are uncomfortable because they don't give you solid ground to stand on. You've stepped away from what you were, but you haven't stepped into what's next yet. So it can feel like stagnation, like you're drifting, like you've lost momentum. But underneath that stillness, something is reorganizing. Human beings don't change in straight lines. We change in cycles. There's a reason you hear phrases like the 7-year itch, or people saying they feel like a completely different person every few years. It's not just poetic language. It reflects something real. Over time, your values shift. Your nervous system changes. Your priorities rearrange themselves. What once felt meaningful can stop making sense. What once motivated you can suddenly feel hollow. And that can be frightening if your identity was built around those things. Because when meaning dissolves, the mind often rushes in and says, I need to fix this. I need to find the next thing. I need to get back to who I was. But this phase isn't asking you to go backwards. It's asking you to make space. The in-between is the part of growth where old structures fall away before new ones are ready to take their place. And because there's nothing solid to grab onto yet, it can feel empty, quiet, flat, uncertain. That's why so many people describe this phase as numbness, or feeling disconnected, or like they're just going through the motions. But numbness here isn't absence, it's pause. It's your system saying, let me reset before we move forward. In earlier versions of humanity, these pauses were built into life. Seasons slowed people down, rites of passage marked change. Communities expected periods of withdrawal and reflection. Now, we live in a world that doesn't allow for that. We're expected to keep producing, keep performing, keep identifying ourselves by roles and outcomes. So when a natural pause arrives, it feels threatening. You might notice the urge to fill the space quickly, to distract yourself, to overwork, to scroll, to reinvent yourself overnight, to force a new identity into place just so the discomfort stops. But rushing through this phase often creates more confusion later, because what's forming here isn't meant to be forced. This is the space where you quietly ask different questions. Not, how do I get back to normal? But, what no longer fits? What feels heavy now? What am I no longer willing to carry? Those questions don't demand immediate answers. They need time, and that's why this phase can't be hurried. You're not meant to have clarity yet. You're meant to have awareness. Awareness of what you're shedding. Awareness of what drains you. Awareness of what no longer feels true. That awareness is the groundwork. Without it, the next version of you would be built on the same foundations as the last. So if you're in this in-between phase and everything feels quiet or unfamiliar, that doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you're between chapters. And chapters don't overlap neatly. One has to end before the next one can begin. Understanding this doesn't remove the discomfort, but it does remove the panic. You stop trying to escape the pause and start listening to it. And that's where the shift begins. Because once you accept that this is a real phase, not a flaw, not a failure, you can stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, the space becomes something else entirely. Not emptiness, but preparation. And that's what we'll look at next. Why this phase feels so uncomfortable. Here's the part most people don't realize. This in-between phase doesn't feel uncomfortable because something is wrong. It feels uncomfortable because your nervous system doesn't like uncertainty. The nervous system is designed for safety, not truth, for familiarity, not growth. So when the structures you used to rely on start dissolving, old routines, old identities, old motivations, your body reacts before your mind does. Not with clear thoughts, but with sensation. Restlessness, low-level anxiety. A sense of unease you can't quite name. Your mind might say, I don't know what's happening. But your body is saying, I don't recognize the environment anymore. That's important, because many people mistake this signal for danger. They think, if I feel unsettled, something must be wrong. If I don't feel like myself, I must be losing myself. But what's actually happening is that the old map no longer matches the terrain. You're not unsafe, you're uncharted. And the nervous system hates uncharted territory. It prefers the known, even if the known wasn't that good for you. This is why people will cling to old roles long after they've outgrown them. Why they'll stay in situations that drain them just because they're familiar. Why they'll rush into new identities instead of allowing a pause. Because uncertainty feels worse than discomfort, we already understand. So when you're in this phase, your system might push you to do something, anything, just to restore a sense of control. Overthinking, over-explaining, over-planning, or the opposite, numbing out, withdrawing, scrolling endlessly. Neither of those responses means you're failing. They're both attempts at regulation. But here's the shift. This phase isn't asking you to eliminate discomfort. It's asking you to stay present inside it without immediately reacting. That's the skill most people were never taught. We're taught to fix feelings, to override them, to distract from them. But growth doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from learning the difference between discomfort and danger. Discomfort says, something is changing. Danger says, you are not safe. Most of the time in this phase, your body is reading change as threat because it hasn't updated its internal reference point yet. And that's where awareness comes in. Not analysis, not self-judgment. Awareness, Noticing when your body tightens because the future feels unclear. Noticing the urge to rush because stillness feels intolerable. Noticing the stories your mind tells to try to regain certainty. I should know what I'm doing by now. Everyone else seems fine. I'm falling behind. Those thoughts aren't facts. They're attempts to escape ambiguity. And ambiguity is where transformation actually happens. Nothing new is born fully formed. It begins as uncertainty, as space, as questions without answers. That's true in nature, in creativity, in relationships, in identity. Yet we rarely give ourselves permission to stay in that space long enough for something real to emerge. So instead of asking, how do I make this stop? A more useful question is, what is my body responding to right now? Not in a dramatic way. In a grounded way. Is it reacting to lack of clarity, to loss of identity, to fear of being left behind? Once you name the signal, it loses some of its grip. Because awareness brings orientation, and orientation calms the nervous system. You start to realize, I'm not breaking. I'm transitioning. I don't need to solve this today. That alone creates space, space to breathe, space to listen, space to stop treating every uncomfortable sensation as something that needs immediate action. This is where the relationship with yourself begins to change. You stop demanding answers and start allowing signals. And when you allow signals instead of fighting them, they begin to organize themselves. Clarity doesn't arrive through force. It arrives through patience, and patience isn't passive, it's active presence. That's the real work of this phase. Learning how to stay with yourself when the old identity has loosened and the new one hasn't arrived yet. And once you understand that, the discomfort becomes less frightening because you realize it's not pushing you away from yourself, it's guiding you back. And next, we'll look at what to do in this space, how to stay grounded without rushing the next version of you into existence, how to stay anchored while everything is still unclear. So now comes the part people usually skip. Not because it's hard, but because it's quiet. This phase isn't asking you to become anything yet. It's asking you to stay. Stay with yourself without reaching for the next identity. Stay present without demanding certainty. That sounds simple, it isn't. Because when clarity disappears, most people try to replace it with noise. More information, more opinions, more plans, more explanations. But anchoring doesn't come from adding more. It comes from reducing interference. Think of it this way. If you're standing on shifting ground, the instinct is to run. But running on unstable ground only makes you lose balance faster. Stability doesn't come from speed. It comes from weight, from presence, from awareness, from grounding yourself in what's actually here, right now. Not the future version of you, not the past version either, this one. So what does anchoring actually look like in real life? It's not meditation retreats or drastic changes. It's not disappearing from the world. It's subtle. It's noticing when you feel pulled to explain yourself and choosing not to. It's recognizing the urge to fill silence with certainty and letting the silence breathe instead. It's catching the moment you want to scroll, argue, compare, decide, and asking, is this coming from clarity or discomfort? That question alone is grounding. Because it brings you back into the body, and the body always knows when you're rushing yourself. You'll feel it as tension, tightness, a shallow breath. Anchoring is responding to that signal instead of overriding it. You pause, you breathe, you let the sensation exist without turning it into a problem to solve. That's regulation, and regulation is what allows clarity to form later. Without it, any decision you make is usually just a way to escape uncertainty. This is also where boundaries quietly change, not through confrontation, but through non-engagement. You stop feeling the need to justify where you are in life. You stop rushing to explain why you don't want what you used to want. You stop trying to convince people that this phase has meaning, because you feel it. And when you feel it, you don't need external validation. This doesn't make you detached. It makes you self-led. There's a difference. Detached people shut down. Anchored people stay open without being pulled apart. You still show up. You still care. You still participate. But you don't abandon yourself to do it. That's the shift. And here's something important. You don't need to understand this phase for it to be valid. You don't need to define it. You don't need a label. Trying to label it too early is another way of rushing. This phase is metabolizing something. Old beliefs, old motivations, old versions of success or belonging. Those things don't dissolve instantly. They loosen gradually. And while they loosen, there's space. That space can feel empty, or it can feel like possibility. What determines which one you experience is whether you stay connected to yourself while the space exists. So anchoring also means returning to basics. Sleep, food, movement, nature. Rhythm, not optimization, orientation. Letting your system remember what safety feels like without needing answers. Because safety is what allows the nervous system to stop scanning for threats and start opening to insight. And insight doesn't arrive with a drum roll. It arrives quietly, as a preference that changes, as a boundary that forms naturally, as a pull that feels calm instead of urgent. You don't chase it, you recognize it. That's how you know you're anchored. And once you're anchored, you can live inside uncertainty without it consuming you. You don't need to know who you're becoming to trust that you're becoming. You just need to stay present enough to meet yourself along the way. And that brings us to the final part. Because when enough people stop rushing themselves, when enough people return to center, something bigger begins to shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. And that's what we'll close with next. Returning to yourself. So let's bring all of this together. If you take nothing else from today, take this. You're not behind. You're not failing, and you're not disappearing. You're recalibrating. What you're experiencing isn't confusion. It's awareness waking up. It's the moment you realize that the old ways of moving through the world don't quite fit anymore. But the new ways haven't fully revealed themselves yet. And that space, that in-between, isn't empty. It's fertile. It's where your nervous system learns a new rhythm. It's where your values quietly rearrange themselves. It's where your sense of self stops being shaped by reaction and starts being shaped by choice. Most of the world is moving fast right now, loudly, urgently, demanding answers, sides, identities, opinions. But your power doesn't live in reaction. It lives in presence, in the pause before you respond, in the moment you notice a pull and don't follow it, in the breath you take when something tries to hook you emotionally. That's not avoidance. That's sovereignty. When you stop giving your energy away automatically, you start to feel it return. And when your energy returns, clarity follows. Not all at once, not as a lightning strike, but as a quiet knowing. You begin to sense what aligns and what doesn't, without needing to explain it to anyone. You stop asking, what should I do with my life? And start asking, what feels true to me now? That question alone changes everything. Because when you're rooted in yourself, the world doesn't feel quite so overwhelming. You can see it clearly without being swallowed by it. You can care without carrying everything. You can witness change without losing your center. And here's the part that matters more than most people realize. When individuals return to themselves, society changes. Not through force, not through fighting, but through coherence. A person who is regulated, grounded, and self-led doesn't need to dominate conversations, prove themselves, or outsource their sense of worth. They move differently, they listen differently, they choose differently, and when enough people do that, the noise loses its grip. The systems built on reactivity weaken, and something steadier begins to form. That's not a fantasy. It's how real change has always happened. So if you're in that in-between space right now, take heart. You're not waiting for your life to begin. You're learning how to live it from the inside out. Stay with yourself, trust the pause. Let the next version of you arrive, instead of forcing it. You don't need to rush, you're already on your way. And if this space helped you remember that, even a little, then this is exactly where you were meant to be. And if something in this landed for you, if you felt seen or steadied or quietly understood, you're welcome to stay. You don't have to comment. You don't have to explain yourself. But if you want to, you're welcome to share what this brought up for you, or simply sit with it and take it with you into your day. And if this space feels like one you'd like to return to, a place to think, to breathe, and to come back to yourself in a noisy world, you're very welcome here. As always, this has been Valkyrie. Thank you for stopping by. Until next time, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Lanterns up.